Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's episode of Adventures in British Renaissance Literature. I'm your host, Percy Saunders III. Our focus for this evening is the British masterwork by Christopher Marlowe, Dr. Faustus. This is the tragic tale of a man whose thirst for endless knowledge caused his own vanity and selfishness. In his quest for this knowledge, he made a bargain with the devil to sell his soul. God!
I was looking at Dad!
I thought Stormy was in the picture.
Was he?
I
You
don't know.
stupid fart Stormy.
Okay, come on. Just take five.
I saw it.
God, Stormy!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Adventures in British Renaissance Literature. I'm your host, Percy Saunders III. Our focus for this evening is the great tragedy of the Renaissance by Christopher Marlowe, Dr. Faustus. It tells the story, the tragic story, of a man whose thirst for endless knowledge causes vanity and selfishness. In his quest for this knowledge, he makes a bargain to sell his soul to the devil, even though he knows quite perfectly that God would be willing to have him repent for any sins he has made. He gains renown for the power granted to him by the devil, before he finally reluctantly accepts his damnation at the conclusion. This story, and the source is from an English translation of a German legend called The History of the Damnable Life and the Deserved Death of Dr. John Faustus. Marlowe is said to have loved the play and the source for the way it could allow some great dramatic tension. And the character's demise instructs the viewer, or the reader in any case, to abide by Christian ethics rather than the unlawful actions of madmen. Ironically, Marlowe himself frequently misbehaved and disobeyed his own teachings. He was said to have indulged in atheism and even have been arrested for it. He also worked for the Secret Service in his government. In his adaptation of this work, The Life of Dr. John Faustus, Marlowe elaborated, abbreviated, and eliminated bits and pieces of the details, but he kept the basic plot outline the same, as I have already told you earlier. The central conflict of this work, Dr. Faustus, is what makes it the most fascinating. It is not about a group of 3 or 4 characters interspersed. The conflict is limited to a single person, Faustus himself. And because of this means that many of the other characters are mere components of Faustus's mind. For example, it says here that the good and evil angel, which we traditionally think of as resting on the character's shoulders, is inevitably the conscience of Dr. Faustus. And Mephistopheles, the lord of the devils, with whom Faustus makes his Faustian bargain, is merely his soul, gradually bending towards damnation. The image of Helen of Troy, the ghost of this famous Greek myth, is a spirit and represents Faustus' sensual desires. She entices him to abide by Mephistopheles' questionings. And the old man, the most human character that we have mentioned thus far, is the last thread of goodness in Faustus' soul. He begs him and warns him to repent right before the time when Mephistopheles is prepared to drag his soul down to hell. The characters, though, are important not just as symbols, but for who they are. The story would not be complete without them. It is certain, though, that Dr. Faustus, the work, is the most botched and mutilated of all of the great Renaissance plays. There are 2 known versions in existence that came originally and were published initially. The 1604 version and the 1616 version. The 1616 version is half as long as the original, but it is very clear in its structure and is very easy to understand. However, it is often missing very many important passages. The 1604 edition, the 1604 quarto, as they call it, is much more broad and is more frequently seen as it is much longer and easier to perform on stage. But it also contains much unnecessary material and many misplaced sequences. There are also some very bizarre comic scenes in this version which don't seem to have any place at all with Marlowe's body of works. His humor is most known for being dark and morbid, and this humor is light and airy and also quite inferior to the rest of the work. It is believed to have been written by one of Marlowe's many collaborators. Samuel Rowley was the name. Yet since this is so inferior, one would question why Marlowe would have a man that is so and obviously less talented than him, have him write part of this work. It has baffled the scholars for centuries. It has also raises a very important question. Did Christopher Marlowe leave his work incomplete at his death? It is quite possible that Dr. Faustus was finished by another person. The mysteries that surround this great work make it all the more alluring. Faustus is both a hero and a villain in the eyes of the viewer. He is a hero for rejecting the limitations of life, but he's also a villain for laughing scornfully in the face of the structure of humanity. One thing is certain about Dr. Faustus. It leaves one thinking about the conflict that has just been presented. It also causes the viewer to raise many questions. It raises many questions. Any such work that raises questions is undoubtedly a masterpiece. Well, the time is up for today. I must bid you adieu. Tune in next week when I will be reviewing and elaborating on Shakespeare's sonnet number 37, which I will read to you in 14 different ways. Until then, I'm Percy Saunders III. Good night. Oh, and remember, dig up and chisel out the old books in the libraries and give them all a little whirl.